Theo is an ugly commoner who is too weak to save his town from being attacked. However, when he forms a contract with a powerful mage who makes him a warlord, he immediately starts collecting bodies in the battlefield and the bedroom. It all begins when the war between two lands is coming to an end through the marriage of their heirs, Alexis and Marine, and peace is about to prevail through the world. But just as the ceremony is about to begin, Saluka, a skilled mage, senses dark energy and tries to stop it, but no one believes her. Suddenly, a demon shows up and two rulers try to fight off the monster with their combined crests, but their life subscription brutally ends and the war ignites once more. Sometime after the Great Hall tragedy, Saluka travels with Irvin, her friend-zoned lapdog, to her new designation as Accounts Mage. However, they are stopped by creepy guards who want a feel of her honkers, so Saluka gets ready to defend herself. However, before anything goes down, Theo shows up to stop them. He tries diplomacy, but it flops worse than Katy Perry's new album, so he draws his sword instead, channeling his crest and cutting the soldiers down with impressive skill. After the dust settles, Saluka and Theo finally introduce themselves. She's curious about his crest, and he explains that he earned it by hunting demons. Saluka asks what he wants from that power, and Theo opens up about his homeland, Sistina, which is drowning in chaos, with demons running wild, people suffering under the tyranny of their lord. He wants to return one day, free his people, and restore peace. Saluka, intrigued by his braveness, decides to test him out. To prove he's worthy, she starts chanting and summons Tartarus, a towering chaos beast straight out of nightmares. Theo panics and wonders if the strange chick he met on the road is insane. She calmly explains that if he were to defeat this beast, absorb its chaos core, he'll level up into a full-blown knight. Strong enough to make mage contracts, Theo contemplates his life choices and then reluctantly gives in, telling her that he would haunt her if he got bodied, making Saluka smile. The fight begins, and the two-headed mutt charges. Theo struggles at first, pushed to his limit by the beast's raw strength, but he holds his ground. After some cuts, dodges, and almost getting trampled, Theo finally pierces the creature's heart. The beast dissolves, and Theo collects the chaos core. His crest surges with power, and he's now officially a knight. Saluka immediately goes tsundere mode and initiates the binding contract while making it seem like Theo was begging for it, formalizing their partnership with an arcane ritual. She thinks about they were not just a mage and lord, but rather a duo with shared values who could overthrow the cruel system. Meanwhile, far away in a castle, Lord Mest fumes as his retainer Satyrus warns him that attacking Saluka was a big mistake. When reminded that mages were vengeful and did not forget, he just brushed it off. That's when a soldier bursts in, shouting how a nobody named Theo is at their gates, demanding Mest surrender his crest and castle, making the old fart giggle, but then stops laughing when Theo, Saluka, and Irvin literally walk into his throne room like it's a brunch buffet.
FBI, open up!
His defenses were completely bypassed and his security proved to be absolutely useless. Satyrus turns traitor in front of everyone, siding with the three intruders, and finally, Mest panics. He lunges at Saluka with his sword for revenge, but Theo intercepts the blow, and Irvin appears like a shadow, with a blade pressed to Mest's throat. It was game over for him, so Mest chooses life over pride and hands over everything, including his crest, his castle, his title, and just like that, Theo goes from wandering nobody to lord of a domain. Mest scurries away on horseback, disgraced and broken, running home to his mommy. Satyrus pledges loyalty to Theo, offering experience and knowledge for his new role. After everything is done, Saluka outlines their next move and declares that Theo will align with the Union faction, which was a risky, aggressive strategy that could either elevate them fast or get them crushed. Theo accepts the ball buster's words, because even if he doesn't live to see Sistina's freedom, he was willing to sacrifice his life trying. News of the loser knight with the tiny crest quickly spreads, and Lord David from a neighboring town gets word from his lackey Morno that Theo's been busy. Not only had the small fry clutched Lord Mest's crest and crib, but also joined the Union like some overachieving scout. Instead of panicking, David grins like a man ready to pick a fight for fun. He wants to flatten Theo and make an example, even if it means stepping on the toes of other local lords. Meanwhile, Theo's new castle is filled with what every ruler dreads more than dragons, which is paperwork. Saluka updates him on the territory, and how the 3 villages now officially acknowledge him as their new boss. No peasants revolting so far, and everything's going smoother than expected, until taxes come up. She reveals to him that the last lord was squeezing the villagers dry like medieval orange juice. This revelation knocks the wind out of Theo's idealism since he didn't sign up to be a landlord. He just wanted to help his struggling home village. Now, he's knee-deep in bureaucracy, ruling strangers, and questioning life choices. Saluka, ever the buzzkill with a handful of brain cells, calls him out. She says that leaving his home village might seem like abandonment, but it's the only way he'll get strong enough to help it in the future. Growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone, and neither does kingdom building. Theo gets clocked and eats the bitter truth, and moves on. Saluka warns him, if he wants to succeed, he can't be a saint. Leadership means getting your hands dirty, and if he insists on being a goody two-shoes, she's not sticking around to watch the train wreck. Later, Saluka and Irvin have a private war room session about how Theo's shiny new domain was likely to attract enemies like flies to fresh bread. They need to guess who'll strike first. Irvin, who's been out sniffing for intel like a bloodhound in a trench coat, says it's definitely David. The guy has mercenaries, a money pipeline, and big villain energy. Saluka's not down to play the merc game since she wants loyalty, not paychecks with swords, so she sends Irvin back out for recon and decides to use her magic hotline instead. After a fancy summoning ritual, her cat familiar Sir Balgary materializes, fluffy, smug, and spoiled. Saluka scratches his ears like a queen rewarding her jester, then drops a mission on him. He was to deliver a message to Ashella, and while Balgary isn't thrilled, she bribes him with treats, and he vanishes faster than a peasant dodging taxes. Back at the castle, Theo gets nosy about why Saluka ditched her cushy assignment with Count Viller to serve him, and he lays it out. She tells him that she's not here to babysit power-hungry idiots, and that she wants to serve someone with actual ideals, someone like Lord Leon, the OG legend. If Theo keeps his morals intact as he rises, she's in it for the long haul. Later, night falls and David's troops are mobilized. 50 soldiers, 5 mercs, and Morno sharpening his wand like it's prom night. David tells him to watch out for Saluka since they go way back, but now it's business, and come morning, the siege begins. However, Saluka's expecting this, and she is prepped, telling Theo to stay put since she's got backup. And that backup, Ashella, crash lands into the scene with a bear hug like a chaos grenade. Upon hearing Theo is Saluka's boss, she cheerfully threatens to end him if he ever gets any freaky ideas about her bestie. After the introduction's done, Ashella gears up, picking out her weapons like someone choosing wine for a beheading. Then, David's army rolls up, and Saluka spots Morno using invisibility magic to spy. She responds by assigning her dream team. Irvin flanks right, Ashella takes the middle, and Saluka locks down the left with elemental death spells and lightning-based therapy. Soldiers get yeeted into earth walls. Others get knocked out with gentle bolts of unconsciousness. Everything's going great until Morno pops her with a sneak spell. He shows up, sword drawn, and demands her surrender, which proves to be a horrible play on his part. She blocks his attacks with abjuration spells like a magical bouncer at an exclusive club. Ashella, meanwhile, is doing freaky Ashella things. She chases down the enemy leader, Petter, pins him in place, and attempts to smooch him into submission.
What?
Petter panics and goes full martyr mode, trying to take her out with him, asking the soldiers to pierce through the two of them, but they get bodied and it fails miserably. He runs off traumatized with Ashella getting soggy in her panties over the twink. Meanwhile, Irvin, precise as ever, slices through his flank. David sends in Gluck, a brute with skin hard as steel, and Irvin tries stabbing him, but when he realizes it's useless, flings a knife straight into Gluck's eye.
One eye open when I'm sleeping.
Nearby, Saluka and Morno are still locked in their wizard battle when Theo shows up, insisting on fighting himself for his people, and goes full night mode. The two of them duel with their swords until Theo eats one scratch, but returns it with a solid slash to Morno's cheek, ending the fight. Irvin nearly clashes with David, until Theo drags Morno into view like a prized Pokémon and declares checkmate. David, seeing no way out, surrenders. That night, David officially pledges allegiance. He bends the knee, offers his crest, and joins Team Theo. As the crest is absorbed, Theo's title jumps from knight to baron. More power, more problems, but for now, he's winning and chilling. Later, an unexpected delegation arrives at Theo's castle, led by the airhead Priscilla of the Farnese house and her associates from the Order of the Crest. Their mission was to offer their service under Theo's expanding rule. While the gesture implies strategic allegiance, their controversial reputation precedes them. Rumors swirl about the Order confiscating crests from defeated lords, weaponizing religious authority under the guise of divine mission. Seluka voices her distrust sharply, making her reservations clear, but Theo, ever the simp, accepts them, willing to take risks for the strength they might add to his ranks. The castle hosts a celebratory banquet that evening. Conversation buzzes with news of victory and alliance. David gushes with pride about the swift fall of resisting lords, while his twink Morno highlights the political win of gaining Lord Neiman's support. Their consolidation of power has secured all of Western Sevis under Theo's name, and David boldly suggests that kingship may lie ahead. Seluka quickly corrects him. Theo isn't seeking a crown, but rather the loser's goal is to strengthen the Union from within by gaining territory under its banner. To do so, a facade is needed. She announces that Theo will temporarily join the alliance to manipulate perceptions and orchestrate favorable conditions. It's a calculated deception with potential long-term payoff, albeit at the cost of damaging his current standing among Union loyalists. Even Theo wasn't aware of this detail until now, showcasing how Seluka's tactical foresight often involves leaving the himbo out of the decision-making process. Seluka then grants Theo a surname to formalize his new noble status, Cornero. The name belongs to a hero of Sistina who once unified the island and pushed back the forces of chaos before betrayal by the Rossini family cut his life short. Accepting the name aligns Theo with that unfinished legacy and openly signals his intent to challenge the Rossini's dominion. Attention shifts to the official recognition of Theo's holdings. Seluka assigns Morno the mission of negotiating with Viscount Naville, the King of Sevis. His role is to secure acknowledgement of Theo's independence without triggering further conflict. In the meantime, Satyrus brings encouraging words from the King of Clovis, who agrees to accept Theo's autonomy on the condition of non-aggression toward Clovis territory. Despite the promising tone, trouble brews. Satyrus spills the piping hot tea that Theo is merely Seluka's puppet, which was a dangerous narrative that could undermine his legitimacy. Before Seluka can address the implications and defend herself, Irvin appears with urgent news that a chaos hazard has broken out nearby. They rush to the town, where supernatural corruption has already wreaked havoc. Exploding coal, creeping infections, and structural fires hint at deep contamination. A worker bears the signature of chaos across his back, writhing in pain as Seluka tends to him. Theo organizes the evacuation while battling fire alongside locals. Then the salamander appears, which was a chaos beast forged from corrupted flame. Theo's attacks bounce harmlessly off its supernatural hide. Seluka pivots quickly, assigning Aishella to combat while she attempts to heal and assist townspeople. Priscilla steps in, taking over the wounded worker's care and allowing Seluka to focus her magic on the beast. Drawing water from a nearby well, Seluka exploits the salamander's elemental weakness. Her spell works, but the overgrown spicy lizard's destruction triggers an explosion. Seluka creates protective barriers around Priscilla and the wounded. Theo throws himself in front of Seluka to shield her, absorbing the blast and sustaining visible injuries. The town begins recovering the next day. Aishella stands watch over Seluka while she rests. Once awake, Seluka seeks Theo, finding him bruised but directing reconstruction efforts. Seeing the marks left by the explosion, Seluka tends to his wounds herself. She apologizes for the recklessness of her decision, deeply shaken by the collateral damage. Theo gently reassures her, reaffirming his gratitude and intent to rely on her guidance moving forward. Their conversation is interrupted by the looming diplomatic threat that the next round of negotiations will involve Aubest, Seluka's former mentor, an unpredictable element in their already delicate political positioning. Morno returns from his diplomatic mission with grim news. The Viscount refused all negotiation. He asserts absolute ownership over the territory and declares that disputes will be resolved through military force. Peaceful resolution has failed, and war is inevitable. Preparations begin immediately. David gives a bleak assessment of how they are outnumbered and poorly positioned. Still, he commends Theo's decision to lead from the front. Neiman expresses similar admiration, vowing support even if defeat is certain. As battle nears, there's no word from the allied lords, and their army stands alone. But hope arrives from an unexpected quarter. Miners from the recently endangered village, still grateful for Theo's protection during the chaos hazard, arrive with weapons in hand. Ordinary men, offering their lives in return for kindness. Theo hesitates, unwilling to endanger civilians. Saluka challenges this hesitation, arguing that denying them the right to fight for their protector would be dishonorable and wasteful. She wins the argument. Theo uses his crest to create a magical banner, the Patriot's flag, binding every soldier to his cause through shared will and symbolic unity. The battle begins under bleak odds. Yet, Theo's army strikes with uncanny coordination, morale burning brighter than the enemy's numbers. They push the Viscount's forces back with strategy and unflinching purpose. Midway through, allied reinforcements arrive at last in the form of the Free Lords. Their leader explains their decision. They learned that the King of Sevis intended to absorb every local lord and seize their crests. Joining Theo became a necessary countermeasure to protect their autonomy. The tide of battle turns as the Viscount's forces collapse, and after facing humiliation and ruin, the King of Sevis retreats, vowing revenge. Victory brings new leverage as Saluka is dispatched to negotiate directly with Marine Crash of the Alliance. Marine listens, measuring the political value of adding Theo to her boy toy register. She doesn't commit, but she doesn't refuse either. The future of this potential alliance will depend on what Theo and Saluka accomplish next. So, August is sitting there contemplating Theo's alliance proposal like he's deciding what to have for breakfast. Except this breakfast could literally start a civil war. The guy's doing mental gymnastics about how accepting Theo could trigger a domino effect of lords jumping ship, while rejecting him means Marine's gonna go full Yandir mode on Theo's territories. But the kicker was that when someone straight up asks August if he'd attack his own adopted daughter, the stone-cold daddy goes into a monologue about how family bonds are for peasants, and confirms he'd absolutely wreck Saluka if politics demanded it. After some quality time deliberating and winning the Father of the Year award, August drops his verdict that nope, no dice. But not just any nope. He wants Theo to forfeit everything, give up his lands, his title, and basically crawl away into exile like a kicked dog. And if Theo doesn't comply, the prestigious Waldland Order of Knights plus King Savis's entire army are gonna bend him over and thrust their superiority into him. Saluka was unaffected by the lethal daddy drama and simply told her old man that the next time they met would be on the battlefield.
Let's go!
The next day, Saluka, Ashella, and Sir Balgary are bouncing in a carriage toward Viller Constance's place, desperately fishing for allies. Ashella is having a proper meltdown about their father basically disowning them for politics. She's also salty about having to beg Viller for help after previously thinking the guy was beneath Saluka's standards and a plain horndog. However, they don't even get to meet Viller. Instead, they're shuffled off to Margaret, his busty contracted mage, who takes one look at their alliance proposal and goes absolutely not. After the diplomatic burn, delivered with style, back at Theo's castle, the scouts are bringing terrible news that the Waldland Order and King Savis's forces are marching toward them like the world's angriest parade. The numbers are absolutely brutal, but hey, at least they've got castle walls and strategic choke points. After some impromptu, desperate battle planning, David gets the west gate because he's experienced and won't panic. Neiman takes the east gate to coordinate their limited archers, and Ashella gets the main gate to the south, which was where the enemy forces were going to hit the hardest. The strategy isn't to win because they knew deep down that's not happening. It's to hurt them enough that surrender terms might not involve everyone getting executed, which the idiot Saluka considered a win. Soon, it is time for the big battle, and Saluka notices the enemy forces look smaller than expected, which is either good news or terrible intelligence. Ashella's ordering archer volleys while Gluck's hurling boulders like the world's angriest catapult operator. Unfortunately, conventional tactics against superior numbers go about as well as the weakling plebs were expecting. When the main gate gets breached, Ashella does what any reasonable person would do, which is that she personally leads a countercharge into overwhelming enemy forces. It works at disrupting their advance, but Ashella pays the price by getting critically wounded and passing out in a pool of her own blood. Saluka's having a minor breakdown watching her sister potentially die, but Priscilla swoops in with healing magic while Saluka gets back to the fighting. Through sheer desperation and knowing their home terrain better than the invaders, Theo's forces somehow manage to hold the castle. But victory comes with a price as news of Niemann passing away while defending his position like a hero reaches them. Meanwhile, David has apparently vanished from his post. Before anyone can call him a coward, reports come in that he's actually engaged King Savis in single combat on a mountain road, and Morno watches in awe thinking about how David's got brass balls and a death wish. King Savis tries to retreat to open ground where his numbers advantage actually means something. But Gluck, Irvin, and some mystery archers start playing guerrilla warfare games with his forces. That is when things get spicy as David finally corners the king in direct combat and actually defeats him. The monarch is dead, the command structure collapses, and suddenly Theo's impossible situation just became winnable. With the king out of the way, ceasefire negotiations become possible. Theo's willing to give up his rank, abandon his territories, and hand everything to David in exchange for everyone not suffering horribly. While everyone claims that the conclusion was reasonable, Aubust pisses all over their plan, and his response is that only Theo's demise would be enough to satisfy them. Everyone's rightfully pissed about this diplomatic middle finger, but Theo surprises everyone by being weirdly zen about the whole thing. Instead of raging, he's reflecting on how far they've come toward their dreams. Character growth in the middle of a war zone was his wannabe epic reveal. The next morning brings what looks like the final boss fight as Aubust and Marine approach with a small but elite force, confident they're about to end this whole rebellion once and for all. But Saluka remembers something crucial from her conversation with Margaret, about how Villar's refusal was qualified at that time, not a flat rejection. Everyone finds out the guy was playing 4D chess, while everyone else was playing checkers. Right on cue, Villar arrives with his full army and launches a surprise attack on Marine's forces, catching them completely off guard. The enemy retreats, and suddenly defeat becomes salvation through perfectly timed intervention. Even better news was that Ashella finally woke up from her injuries thanks to Priscilla's healing magic. The gang's back together, and they've somehow survived what should have been certain death. In the throne room, Irvin confirms Marine's complete withdrawal while Count Villar makes his grand entrance. Saluka tries to apologize for previously judging him, but Villar waves it off like everything went according to his master plan. However, instead of claiming the crown for himself, Theo gags everyone and asks to become Villar's vassal. He's trading independence for protection, and Villar accepts because having competent subordinates is never a bad thing. Theo formally gives up his royal ambitions and hands his remaining authority to David, while Priscilla pledges to stick with him regardless of his reduced circumstances. Nearby at the Vampire King's castle, the king is having a delightfully tense chat with the werewolf queen. Just when things are getting spicy, Yana, descendant of the Black Witch and professional mood killer, crashes the party to tell the queen her diplomacy sucks. Outside, werewolf twins Emma and Luna are waiting for mom like good little doggy children, only to get an unexpected visit from Yana herself, which was never a good sign. Meanwhile, in much happier news, Theo's getting a major promotion at Altiac as Count Villar officially makes him a night guard. To him, it's like getting Employee of the Month, except with more political power and fewer pizza parties. Saluka introduces him to Villar's magical dream team, Laura the nerd, Helga the loud one, and Colleen, who's definitely sizing up the new loser. Margaret drops some intel that Prince Milza of Dartania is coming for a diplomatic visit, which means it's time to dust off the good silverware. Dinner with royalty goes about as well as they would expect. Everyone's arguing about imperial succession while Prince Milza gives Theo the stink eye, basically calling him a loser peasant who lacks the killer instinct for greatness. Theo would be left gagged at his unconventional way to make a guy feel welcome at the table. The conversation shifts to David's conquest of Savis, because even supernatural dinner parties need some military gossip. In the library, Theo's doing his honest work dusting books while Saluka dives into some light reading about the Demon Lord. The history lesson reveals that witches, werewolves, and vampires once teamed up to defend Altiac from demonic forces, earning the witches complete autonomy from the Constance clan. Theo's having a moment realizing how his humble homeland doesn't exactly measure up to demon-fighting territory. Laura interrupts study time to drag them to the throne room, where they meet Zelma the witch and get their first real mission from Count Villar, which was to investigate why werewolf hordes are mysteriously gathering near the Forest of Eternal Darkness. Speaking of the forest, werewolves are tracking Emma and Luna's scents when Yana shows up riding her broomstick like the world's most threatening Uber driver. She demands to go into the dangerous territory alone, and the werewolf queen reluctantly agrees because arguing with descendants of the Black, which rarely ended well. By dusk, Theo and Saluka arrive at the forest edge and immediately run into the werewolf welcoming committee, who are about as welcoming as a pack of rabid dogs. They're basically telling the humans to get lost or else. But then the Vampire King's shadow intervenes, graciously allowing Count Villar's emissaries to pass through his domain, which was vampire diplomacy at its finest. Inside the castle, Vampire King Dimitri is playing haunting organ music because all vampires come with a supernatural soundtrack. While he's providing the atmospheric background music, down in the basement, the werewolf queen is fighting Yana, who's taken her daughters hostage. The queen loses her right arm in the process, which is definitely not how she wants the rescue mission to go. Back upstairs, Theo and Saluka get their audience with Dimitri, who drops some serious exposition bombs. He reveals his master plan to restart the Dark Ages through ultimate chaos, because if the Grancrest fusion happens, it'll end the Twilight Era and eliminate him. When they ask about the wedding attack, he gets all evasive and nervous like a bashful tsundere before dramatically transforming into bats and abandoning his own castle. Down in the basement, Theo and Saluka find the werewolf queen injured and Yana in full psycho mode, taunting her captive. Learning that Dimitri bailed on her, Yana decides to just go wild and embrace the chaos. She attacks with her enchanted broomstick, but Theo and Saluka manage to deflect her supernatural tantrum. The queen transforms into her wolf form to rescue her daughters, showing that maternal instincts transcend species. Yana sends stone gargoyles after the escaping family, but Mama Wolf decapitates both with her claws because nobody messes with her cubs. Using her last bit of strength, she claws Yana's leg, but takes a fatal magic blast in return. The twins Emma and Luna embrace their dying mother as Clara. The werewolf queen passes away in a genuinely heartbreaking fashion. The last thing she asked of Theo and Saluka was to safely escort her kids out of the forest. Outside the forest, they hold a proper funeral for Clara, with her clan honoring her sacrifice. The new clan head thanks Theo and Saluka for their efforts, because even in supernatural politics, gratitude matters. Back at Altiat Castle, the political aftermath brings some interesting developments. The entire werewolf clan has pledged allegiance to Theo, significantly boosting his supernatural street cred. Yana managed to escape despite everyone's best efforts, and the werewolf twins Emma and Luna have become Theo's new maids, bringing a touch of supernatural domestic help to his household while they process their grief. Count Villar gets an invite to some fancy Union Lords meeting in Jalusha that's apparently super important politically. Despite initially acting like he's too cool for school, Villar eventually decides to show up to this political sausage fest. Meanwhile, Margaret tells Count Villar that her 25th birthday was coming up. Elsewhere in the castle, Laura shows off her magical skills to Saluka in what's basically a private flex session, demonstrating spells that prove she's got some actual talent. Margaret randomly walks in and immediately bounces without saying a word, leaving everyone wondering if she forgot her lines or just remembered she left the oven on. Saluka, being the perceptive little schemer she is, totally gets whatever cryptic message Margaret was trying to send through her awkward exit. She hunts down Villar in his room to chat about the situation, where he dumps the responsibility of planning Margaret's birthday bash on her shoulders. He also decides that both Saluka and Theo should tag along to the Union Lord meeting, explaining that Federico Rossini will be there and told her that the guy needs more careful handling than a nuclear warhead. On Margaret's birthday night, the party kicks off with all the elegance and political backstabbing that was to be expected from medieval nobility. Margaret approaches Saluka with a heartfelt request to take care of Villar while she's gone, basically asking a young mage to babysit a grown man. The evening's main event happens when Margaret and Count Villar share this supposedly enchanting dance that has everyone mesmerized, though it's just because medieval entertainment standards are pretty low.
Stop it. Get some help.
Watching this amazing display of ballroom skills, Theo gets inspired and literally drags Saluka onto the dance floor against her will, creating an awkward moment that's about as smooth as sandpaper. After their train wreck of a dance ends, Prince Milza swaggers over with his usual arrogance and throws an insult at Theo that's meant to crush his spirit. However, Theo's brain works in mysterious ways, and he somehow takes the insult as a compliment, which clearly pisses off Prince Milza. The prince, now openly showing his distaste for Theo, challenges him to step outside for a formal duel, because conflict resolution through violence is still the preferred method here. Prince Milza wins the fight and uses his victory to lecture Theo about his lack of ambition, claiming he has no business dreaming about lordship when he can barely handle a sword. Theo fires back that he's got clear goals and acknowledges that plenty of people will become stepping stones on his path to success. He also points out that Prince Milza seems more interested in oppressing people through brute force than actual leadership. These comments set Prince Milza's temper ablaze, making him declare that he wants to serve whoever wields the legendary Grancrest, suggesting that Count Viller might be that chosen one. Saluka approaches Theo after this intense confrontation, mentioning how anxious the whole situation makes her, and he agrees because even dense losers can occasionally read a room.
Emotional, damn it!
Their conversation gets all philosophical as they acknowledge that Theo's ultimate goal will definitely result in a pile of bodies along the way. However, Saluka tries to make him feel better by noting his empathetic nature and his frustrating magical ability to make people want to follow him despite his questionable decision-making skills. When Theo directly asks if she'll stick with him on this potentially murderous journey, Saluka says yes without hesitation, proving her loyalty is either admirable or concerning. After the party wraps up and everyone goes home, Margaret and Viller have a private heart-to-heart in the Count's quarters, discussing both business and personal matters. Margaret officially puts Saluka in charge of political affairs while designating Laura to handle magical responsibilities, in essence letting IDOTs run the government while the adults are away. Their chat takes a deep turn as Count Viller opens up about his traumatic childhood, sharing details about his parents' messed-up relationship and how his mother abused him while claiming it was to protect him from his father's even worse treatment. This revelation makes Margaret cry as she finally understands what screwed up the man she serves. Overwhelmed by this emotional dump, Margaret confesses her love for the Count, who clearly feels the same way, but can't fully commit due to his personal baggage that happens to come with a lifetime warranty. The next day brings everyone back to serious political business as Count Viller holds a strategy meeting with Theo, Saluka, David, Morno, and other allied lords. The meeting focuses on prepping for the upcoming Union Lord Assembly and discusses how David's army will systematically crush the territories of Clovis, Forbes, and Ismaya through good old-fashioned brute conquest. As their master plan starts rolling out, some unnamed Forbes lords decide to join the Union, switching sides faster than a weather vane in a tornado. Once the intelligence network provides info about where the remaining Forbes lords are hiding, tactical assignments get handed out among the allies. The group decides that Theo will handle capturing Baron Radovan, whose resistance apparently requires some diplomatic finesse mixed with military pressure. Prince Milza volunteers for the more dangerous job of dealing with Baron Brannies, who's holed up in a fortified castle with his remaining loyal forces like some medieval doomsday prepper. The prince arrives at the castle with his usual confidence and immediately takes control of the situation through decisive action. With the efficiency of a vintage pest exterminator, he eliminates all the lords who chose to resist the Union's authority, demonstrating the ruthless effectiveness that defines his approach to political problems and cementing his reputation as someone who solves disagreements with extreme prejudice. Theo rolls up to the bustling port city run by Lord Ladvan, a strategic location that's apparently crucial for all the political drama going down. He thinks back to him and Saluka planning ahead like the tactical nerds they are, with Saluka predicting that this particular lord would never surrender even if someone held a sword to his love sausage. She had suggested challenging him outside the city to avoid turning civilians into collateral damage, proving to Theo that she's got both brains and a conscience. Lord Ladvan meets Theo outside his government building and announces he's siding with the Factory Alliance. Because of this political commitment, he refuses to negotiate with Theo and declares they'll only settle this through good old-fashioned violence because talking is for weaklings. Theo points out that accepting this challenge would mean fighting innocent townspeople too, which seems like overkill even for his outdated standards. Lord Ladvan grimly confirms this unfortunate reality, so Theo mentions that if he bounces today, Lord David will show up tomorrow with 30,000 soldiers ready to turn this place into an old parking lot. The townspeople get visibly freaked out by this news, finally understanding their lord's stubborn pride might get them all annihilated. Theo then offers a compromise where Lord Ladvan and his soldiers face Theo's men directly, sparing the civilians and letting the Lord go out in a blaze of glory instead of a blaze of childish stupidity. Lord Ladvan agrees to this arrangement, much to his people's horror and growing panic, moved by his citizens desperately begging him not to throw his life away for political theater. With some even volunteering to die with him, Theo presents another option. He suggests Lord Ladvan ditch the Factory Alliance and join the Fantasia Union to save his people from unnecessary suffering. After weighing his options and probably realizing that bodied lords can't protect anyone, Lord Ladvan agrees to switch sides. He points out that Theo won't get any military glory from this peaceful resolution. However, Theo claims he doesn't care about such superficial achievements and is genuinely glad everything got resolved without turning the port into a medieval war simulator. Deeply moved by Theo's selfless attitude and surprising lack of testosterone-driven decision-making, Lord Ladvan pledges his complete loyalty to Theo. However, Theo can't accept this formal offer since he's still Lord Villar's knight, but he graciously accepts Ladvan's friendship instead, creating the most polite rejection in feudal history. Meanwhile, David scores a major victory by defeating the King of Forbes, and this achievement gets reported to Lord Villar by Laura through their medieval intelligence network that somehow works better than modern Wi-Fi. Villar notes with satisfaction that both Theo and David's successes will crush enemy morale and boost their cause. With growing confidence, Villar announces to his soldiers that the path to Jalucia is now wide open for their advance. At the imposing Waldland Castle, Margrave Marine gets comprehensive updates about the rapidly changing military situation from her trusted mage August, who provides detailed intelligence about recent developments and desperately wishes he had better news to report. Later, at the prestigious Union Lord Party, Count Villar, Laura, Theo, and Saluka attend this gathering of political significance, representing their interests among the assembled nobility. Count Clut Gallas, a longtime friend of Lord Villar, warmly greets him, and they discuss Villar's recent impressive achievements against his cousin in their ongoing family rivalry that makes Thanksgiving dinner look peaceful. After Lord Clut makes an audacious proclamation expressing his defiant stance against Marine's growing power, they're approached by the influential Marquis Dawson. Lord Dawson confronts Villar about previous matters he'd tried to consult him on, but Lord Villar brushes off these concerns with the diplomatic equivalent of leaving someone on read. Soon afterward, Margrave Alexis Dew arrives and approaches Lord Villar with cordial familiarity. The two leaders greet each other warmly, and Lord Alexis meets Saluka, sincerely thanking her for saving his cheeks during the chaotic wedding massacre. He then turns to Theo, expressing genuine admiration for the young knight's accomplishments and wanting to arrange a private one-on-one conversation later. As the elaborate party continues with political discussions and social maneuvering, Lord Villar introduces both Theo and Saluka to the powerful Lord Federico Rossini. This formal meeting leads to an unexpected brief altercation about Theo's surname and lineage, creating tension that hints at deeper family drama than a soap opera marathon. Late that night after the party wraps up and most guests have departed, Lord Alexis keeps his word and visits Theo at his temporary residence for a private meeting that includes Saluka. Their in-depth discussion covers various important topics including Theo's recent achievements, the tragic wedding ceremony that got violently crashed harder than a teenager's first car, the cancelled marriage between Marine and Alexis, and broader matters concerning the ongoing war of unification. When their productive meeting concludes and they prepare to see Alexis off, the group gets suddenly attacked by dangerous Omerta assassins who were secretly sent by Federico like the world's deadliest surprise party. Once the violent encounter with the skilled assassins is settled through combat and Alexis is safely seen off, Saluka makes an astute observation about the political ramifications. She notes that this assassination attempt will have serious consequences, likely resulting in the powerful Rossini family being expelled from the Union due to their leader's treacherous actions, making future family gatherings more awkward than a bumpy divorce proceeding. Layla, serving as Lord Marine's devoted lapdog, delivers a detailed report about the recent assassination attempt on Alexis' life, information that carries serious implications for both personal drama and political scheming. Following this briefing, Marine appears emotionally wrecked in her private chambers, still wearing her elaborate wedding dress like some wannabe Miss Havisham, while mourning the reality that she can't marry Alexis due to the catastrophic Great Hall tragedy that destroyed their planned union. Lord Viller gets comprehensive intel from Theo and Seluca about Federico Rossini's orchestrated assassination attempt and confirmation that Marine is still thirsty as hell for Alexis despite their forced separation. Viller then provides context about how the two lovebirds originally met, transitioning into an extended flashback that reveals the foundation of their relationship. During a carriage ride through the city with her retainers, driven by loyal Irvin, Marine encounters Alexis, who's standing around staring at the pavement like it holds the secrets of the universe. Upon seeing the beautiful Marine, Alexis immediately declares his love for her, though she dismisses his proclamation as just another cheesy pickup line from a freaky nobleman with no riz. This fateful meeting prompts Alexis to start sending numerous heartfelt love letters, all of which Marine refuses to read until Layla eventually persuades her to give them a chance. Though initially planning to read only one letter to shut up her retainer, Marine finds herself captivated and devours the entire collection like romantic literature crack. The final letter mentions a special gift, and the next morning, Marine discovers a magnificent rose display adorning her courtyard, demonstrating Alexis' romantic dedication and surprisingly decent landscaping skills.
Not bad, not bad.
Wanting to thank Alexis personally, Marine learns he frequently attends social gatherings hosted by local nobility and decides to crash one herself. At the party, an altercation erupts between Marine and some young lord, prompting Alexis to intervene heroically, though he gets his behind knocked out during the confrontation like a medieval white knight. In a private recovery room, Alexis awakens to find Marine has remained at his bedside throughout his recuperation. Their subsequent conversation reveals mutual awareness of each other's noble backgrounds and family histories. When Alexis again confesses his feelings with genuine sincerity, Marine maintains her rejection despite growing affection, keeping her emotional walls up higher than her castle battlements. During what should have been a trip to Lord Darcy's manor, Marine instead finds herself at a location where children perform a beautiful song under Alexis conducting. This elaborate scheme was orchestrated by Layla, who could no longer bear witnessing her lord's emotional suffering that was more painful to watch than a public execution. After the performance concludes, Alexis pays each child a silver coin before engaging Marine in meaningful dialogue. Marine initially criticizes Alexis for his charitable generosity, questioning such acts, but he passionately defends his desire to help the less fortunate. His compelling argument finally breaks through Marine's defenses, melting her heart faster than armor in a forge, moving her to accept his marriage proposal. Returning to present events, Viller explains that while he typically opposes political marriages, he supported their union because it was founded on genuine love rather than strategic calculation. The critical Union Lords meeting convenes with Count Viller's recent actions becoming the central discussion topic. Marquis Dawson vehemently expresses disapproval of Viller's military initiatives, arguing they eliminate any possibility for peaceful negotiations between the warring factions. Viller defends his position by having Theo present detailed explanations of their strategic reasoning to the assembled lords, basically using his protege as a human shield in political combat. Meanwhile, Marine finally understands why her repeated requests for alliance with Lord Parville of Stark have gone unanswered. A messenger from Stark reveals that before accepting any partnership, she must demonstrate her capabilities as an effective military leader through decisive action, sternly telling her to prove she's not just another pretty face with a crown. Following Theo's speech, Viller argues that previous battles occurred only because the alliance started the savagery first, forcing Theo to respond defensively. Dawson reluctantly accepts this reasoning, but maintains concern about damaged relationships with Waldland. Viller counters that Waldland previously rejected Theo's membership offer, just giving him the historical equivalent of being left on read. This revelation prompts Dawson to argue that Viller should have refused Theo's request, a sentiment echoed by other lords present. Viller boldly declares his commitment to helping any Union member, particularly those under attack, while noting that neutral Bredland faces imminent siege by Sea King Eric. Dawson agrees about thwarting Eric, with Viller emphasizing the Union must genuinely consider all territorial interests, like some ancient real estate broker. Since the majority supports declaring war against the alliance, Lord Alexis expresses agreement with this decision. Additionally, Alexis proposes elevating Viller to Union leadership, noting his superior capabilities and promising to pledge fealty if Viller becomes emperor. However, Viller declines, explaining his grandfather would disapprove of family members beating the living hell out of each other for political gain. Seizing this opportunity, Dawson proposes attempting diplomatic negotiations with the alliance before pursuing warfare. Clute immediately objects, but Dawson firmly dismisses his concerns, causing visible frustration. A formal vote results in unanimous agreement to attempt alliance negotiations, creating the kind of compromise that satisfies absolutely no one and pleases everyone equally. Aubust promptly informs Marine of these political developments, and she immediately orders military preparations for invading Stark, recognizing this as her opportunity to prove she's got bigger nuts than most of the wimpy male lords. This invasion will serve as the crucial prelude leading directly to Altiac's invasion, establishing the foundation for future conflicts that will reshape the entire regional political landscape. Pavel Murado shows up at Count Viller's estate, desperately begging for military aid against the invading Waldland forces that are about to steamroll his territory. The Lord's plea carries genuine urgency as his domain faces imminent conquest. Milza and Saluka both advise Viller to approve the request, believing it strategically smart to support an ally against their common enemies. However, Viller firmly declines the appeal, leaving Pavel hanging like dirty laundry. Viller's refusal stems from political calculations rather than military concerns. Having recently ditched the Fantasia Union, he can't afford to piss off Alexis by appearing to act against the alliance's interests. His position requires delicate maneuvering to maintain credibility with both factions while keeping his own cheeks covered. With diplomatic formality, Viller officially denies Pavel's request and suggests he might be better served by submitting to his cousin Marine's authority. Pavel leaves the meeting frustrated and bitter, his hopes for salvation crushed harder than his military prospects. The following day finds Theo and Saluka riding through the countryside on horseback, discussing preparations for the inevitable conflict ahead. Their conversation touches on strategic considerations and the challenges awaiting them as tensions escalate across the continent. Their journey takes them past a village that once fell under vampire Dimitri's dominion, its abandoned streets serving as a reminder of past conflicts and the price of backing the wrong undead horse. Continuing toward the Poltava border, Theo announces his intention to proceed in that direction, though his reasoning remains as clear as mud to Saluka. Their path winds through dense forest terrain, where towering trees create a natural canopy overhead. When heavy rain begins to fall, they seek shelter in a makeshift cave formed within the hollow of a massive tree trunk. The improvised refuge provides adequate protection from the downpour while they wait for the weather to clear, like an ancient camping trip gone freaky. During their enforced rest, conversation turns to more personal matters as they reflect on their shared experiences. Theo speaks of his earlier days as a solitary wanderer, moving from place to place without clear purpose until fate brought him together with Saluka. The mage recalls her own journey from the academy to their first meeting, acknowledging how their partnership has shaped both their destinies. The intimate setting and honest conversation in their cozy tree hideout leads to a moment of emotional vulnerability as they both acknowledge their deepening feelings for one another, culminating in a tender embrace that finally seals the deal on their palpable romantic tension.
Finally!
Meanwhile, the military situation goes to hell rapidly as Waldland forces engage Pavel's army in decisive battle. Milza joins the conflict against the Waldland troops, bringing his considerable martial skills to bear against the invaders. Despite his efforts, the tactical situation remains precarious as enemy forces demonstrate superior coordination and the kind of numbers that make one question his life choices. That evening, Marine convenes a strategic meeting with her military advisors to analyze the developing situation and plan their next moves. Aubust presents an unconventional but potentially effective strategy that could turn the tide in their favor. His plan involves exploiting the natural phenomenon known as the Rotten Sea, a region where concentrated miasma creates hazardous conditions for anyone lacking proper protection, which were a lot of words for medieval chemical warfare. The Waldland forces implement Aubust's strategy with ruthless efficiency, using both naturally occurring miasma and artificially enhanced concentrations to create a toxic battlefield environment. Enemy soldiers quickly succumb to the debilitating effects of the poisonous atmosphere, leaving them vulnerable to attack while unable to mount effective resistance. The plan works like a deadly charm, delivering exactly the advantage Meereen's forces needed to secure victory without breaking a sweat. With the Stark forces severely weakened by miasma exposure, Meereen's army advances to complete their conquest. Havel's remaining troops offer little resistance as they struggle with the lingering effects of toxic exposure, allowing the Waldland forces to achieve total victory with minimal casualties. Pavel himself gets captured along with his surviving retainers, marking the end of his brief and pathetic resistance against Meereen's expansion. As Meereen returns to her command tent to consolidate her victory, she instructs Layla and Cammy to arrange a meeting with Milza. The two servants efficiently carry out their mistress's orders, approaching the warrior lord with Meereen's invitation to discuss potential alliance. Milza agrees to the audience, recognizing the strategic importance of the moment as military and political alignments shift faster than loyalties in a packed room of hoes. During their subsequent meeting, Milza expresses his willingness to join Meereen's cause, citing his growing disillusionment with Villar's leadership. He believes the Count lacks the necessary resolve and vision to achieve continental unification, making Meereen a more promising leader to support. However, Milza attaches a personal condition to his military alliance, demanding some freaky one-on-one time with Meereen for bedroom gymnastics as part of their political package deal. Meereen accepts Milza's terms without hesitation, demonstrating her pragmatic approach to securing powerful allies even when it means mixing business with pleasure. She signals Layla and Cammy to prepare for the arranged encounter, showing no reluctance despite the implications of the agreement. Milza's expression reveals his satisfaction with the arrangement as he anticipates the consummation of their political and very personal alliance. Meereen secures Milza's loyalty through both political necessity and what can only be described as strategic thought behavior, marking a significant shift in the balance of power. Her willingness to pay any price for victory demonstrates she'll literally do anything to win, while Milza's betrayal of Villar proves he's about as loyal as a horned-up guy with commitment issues. This development fundamentally screws over the strategic landscape as former allies become enemies faster than a reality TV show finale. New partnerships form through calculated lust and freaky time rather than genuine affection or basic human decency, because apparently medieval politics runs on the same principles as a sketchy dating app. The whole situation emphasizes the harsh realities of political maneuvering where personal desires become bargaining chips in larger games of power and conquest. Meereen's weaponized her huge assets to secure military alliances, which is either brilliant strategy or a new low in diplomatic relations, depending on the perspective her subjects gaslight themselves into seeing. Aubus delivers significant news to Meereen about a major shift in their strategic position. Milza's father has kicked the bucket, meaning the warrior lord now fully inherits control of Dartania and its considerable military resources. This development substantially strengthens Meereen's faction, as Milza's complete authority over his domain allows him to commit his full forces to their cause without Daddy's permission slips getting in the way. In the Northern Territories, Zelma prepares her werewolf tribes for the approaching Waldland invasion. The tribal warriors sharpen their weapons and reinforce their defensive positions, knowing that their unique combat abilities will be crucial in the battles ahead. Their supernatural strength and ferocity make them formidable opponents, but even furries need to prepare carefully against organized military forces equipped with modern tactics and magical support. Count Villar convenes an urgent war council with his allied lords and key subjects to address the escalating threat posed by his cousin's expanding forces. The strategic situation requires immediate action to prevent complete encirclement and defeat. Villar proposes sending diplomatic requests for military aid to both Regalia and Kilhais, recognizing that his current forces alone can't handle the kind of beating Meereen's about to dish out. Additionally, he seeks naval support from Hammon, understanding that control of the seas will prove crucial in the coming conflict. During the same meeting, Villar authorizes David to launch an invasion of Osral territory, opening a new front that will force enemy forces to divide their attention and resources. This aggressive move demonstrates Villar's willingness to take calculated risks rather than sit around waiting to get steamrolled by his cousin's advances. As dusk approaches, Selge makes the decision to march his forces to support his older brother despite strong objections from his younger brother Igor. The family division reflects the broader political tensions affecting noble houses across the continent. as personal loyalties clash with strategic considerations. Selge's determination to aid Viller regardless of potential consequences shows the kind of brotherly loyalty that would make a cheesy soap opera writer weep. Both Hammond and Kilhise respond favorably to Viller's requests for assistance, agreeing to dispatch military aid to support his cause. Their cooperation provides hope that the Count's alliance can match the growing strength of Marine's faction. Meanwhile, Theo and Saluka establish their headquarters at Dimitri's former castle, using the strategic location to review their available forces and set up shop in what's essentially a medieval fixer-upper. A naval fleet appears on the horizon approaching Viller's coastal territories, creating immediate tension among his defenders. While initial intelligence suggests the ships belong to Dartania, Viller maintains high alert status among his subjects, recognizing that assumptions in warfare often prove as fatal as trusting a politician's promises. Better safe than sorry becomes the operative principle as lookouts strain to identify the approaching vessels. A single boat separates from the main fleet and docks at Viller's private port, revealing Margaret as its passenger. She brings devastating news of Mills's betrayal, confirming Viller's worst fears about his former ally's defection to Marine's cause. The intelligence allows Viller to prepare for immediate naval combat as Mills's disloyal fleet reveals its true colors. The naval battle erupts with fierce intensity as Mills's Dartania forces engage Viller's defenders in coastal waters. Initially, the Dartanian naval forces appear to gain the upper hand through superior numbers and coordinated tactics. Their experienced crews and well-maintained vessels pose a serious threat to Viller's maritime defenses, threatening to turn his coastline into their personal swimming pool. However, the tide of battle shifts dramatically when Laura and Colleen deploy their magical abilities in support of Viller's fleet. Their combined arcane powers devastate the Dartanian naval forces, sinking multiple vessels and forcing survivors to abandon their offensive positions. The magical bombardment proves absolutely devastating, demonstrating that having battle mages is basically the ancient equivalent of cheat codes. Following the naval victory, Viller discusses future battle plans with Margaret, expressing his intention to personally participate in upcoming ground combat. His decision to lead from the front reflects both his commitment to the cause and his understanding that morale depends heavily on visible leadership during times when everyone's about to get their rears kicked. Theo and Saluka review their recruitment successes, expressing satisfaction with their ability to attract new soldiers to Viller's banner. Their efforts have significantly bolstered the Count's military strength, providing hope that numerical disadvantages can be overcome through effective organization and the kind of inspiring leadership that makes people forget they're probably going to kick the bucket. Viller holds another tactical meeting to finalize preparations for the next major engagement. The strategic discussions focus on optimal troop deployments, supply line security, and coordination with allied forces. Every detail requires careful consideration as he stakes continue to escalate faster than an exaggerated medieval arms race. The following day brings renewed naval combat as Queen Edokia Cullerha of Hammond arrives with her fleet to support Viller's maritime forces. Her intervention against the invading Dartania vessels demonstrates the effectiveness of Viller's diplomatic efforts in securing foreign assistance. The combined naval strength forces Millsa to adapt his tactics, ordering his men to abandon their larger ships and transfer to smaller, more maneuverable boats for amphibious assault operations that sound way more dangerous than they need to be. On land, Selge and his mage Ellet find themselves trapped by Waldland forces in a precarious tactical position. Their situation appears desperate as enemy troops close in from multiple directions, threatening to turn them into medieval hamburger meat. However, Solon arrives with his forces at the crucial moment, launching a rescue operation that saves Selge and his retainers from certain defeat or capture. Marine learns of Solon's intervention and immediately orders her forces to overwhelm his army in retaliation. Her troops respond with overwhelming force, decimating Solon's military units and killing the Lord himself in the process. The swift and brutal response sends a clear message that crossing Marine results in the kind of consequences that make people reconsider their life choices. After the main narrative concludes, Laura provides Viller with updates on multiple front operations. David's forces have successfully driven the Osral forces to complete surrender, eliminating another potential threat to their flanks. Additionally, Theo has effectively neutralized the Bulza forces, cleaning house like a pro-exterminator. With these victories secured, Viller authorizes both David and Theo to launch attacks against surrounding enemy territories. The offensive operations represent a shift from defensive tactics to aggressive expansion, as Viller seeks to consolidate his position before Maureen can bring her full strength to bear and turn his remaining strongholds into makeshift gas stations. These actions demonstrate the fluid nature of medieval warfare, where naval battles, magical support, diplomatic alliances, and personal betrayals all play crucial roles in determining strategic outcomes. Each victory and defeat reshapes the political landscape as noble houses rise and fall based on their ability to adapt to rapidly changing circumstances that make the Elan and Trump online feud look stable by comparison. August shows up to give Maureen the latest war updates, probably while adjusting his glasses dramatically. Mills's Dartania crew finally linked up with the main Waldland army, creating one massive death ball that would make any RTS player jealous. Oh, and Ulrika's Nord fleet is sailing toward Castle Unicorn as if Viller hasn't suffered enough yet. Dawn breaks and here comes Ulrika's fleet, looking like they're about to deliver the world's most expensive pizza. Viller's remaining ships look pathetic in comparison. It's like bringing a rubber ducky to a battleship convention. The Nord formations are so disciplined, they probably have better organization than most people's sock drawers. Viller takes a good hard look at his situation and realizes he's more screwed than a cheap piece of IKEA furniture. His fleet got worked over harder than a gym membership in January, and now he's facing forces that could probably sink him by accident. But instead of running away like a smart person, Viller decides to go down with the ship because his dignity tastes better than living. Despite knowing he's about to get absolutely clapped, Viller sends word to his allied lords basically offering them to feel free and abandon him and save themselves. He tries hard to be the friend who tells everyone to leave the sinking party while he stays behind to clean up, in a noble but questionably intelligent way. Queen Adokia's mage is practically screaming at her to get out of Dodge before she becomes fish food. Even her magical advisor knows when to fold, which says something about how bad things have gotten. The queen finally agrees to dip, while muttering about how this wasn't in her royal job description. Back at Castle Unicorn, Viller's getting ready for his final boss fight with help from Margaret, his ex-mage who came back like a boomerang nobody threw. In what might be the worst-timed romantic confession in the world's history, the two finally admit they have the hots for each other right before everything goes to hell, because nothing says, "I love you" like imminent death. The Nord forces proceed to absolutely demolish the Hammond fleet like they're playing whack-a-mole with boats. Queen Adokia watches her flagship get turned into expensive driftwood and has a complete mental meltdown. Watching his people get turned into fish chum will be enough for that to transpire. Meanwhile, various lords are having a strategy meeting with Alexis, Dawson, and Clute that's about as productive as a chocolate teapot. Dawson wants to negotiate because he still believes in the power of friendship, while Clute thinks diplomacy is for people who don't own enough swords. These guys couldn't even agree on pizza toppings, let alone war strategy. Alexis suggests they surrender to maybe save Viller's life, which gets shot down faster than a paper airplane in a hurricane. Clute decides he'd rather invade the north because, according to him, the solution to getting one's rear kicked is to go kick someone else's rear. The final battle kicks off at Castle Unicorn with Viller and Margaret taking their positions like the world's most doomed power couple. Inside the castle, Ulrika finds Colleen and proceeds to delete her from existence. Because nobody told her this wasn't a fair fight, Margaret decides to go out in a blaze of glory, literally burning herself to ash while casting some epic magic to hold back the enemy. Her body disintegrates like she's been Thanos snapped, but at the least, she manages to buy Viller a few more minutes to contemplate his life choices. Viller, now completely unhinged after watching his girlfriend become dust, charges into battle with all the tactical awareness of a caffeinated squirrel. His cousin Marion shows up for the family reunion nobody wanted and personally delivers the finishing blow, thinking about how family dinners are going to be awkward in the afterlife. After turning Viller into a kebab, Marion yoinks his crest like she's collecting Pokemon cards. Another one for the collection, and another step closer to her world domination speedrun. After the battle, Marion struts into the throne room with Ulrika and Milza like they own the place, which they now do. Laura and Helga are waiting around to see if they're about to join the unemployment line or the afterlife. Laura decides she'd rather commit Sudoku than work for new management, taking the "if you can't beat them, die" approach. Her friendly fire is basically the medieval equivalent of rage quitting. Helga goes the complete opposite route and begs to keep doing her job as the castle medic. She begs with the logic that under anyone's rule, people would still need band-aids. Her pragmatic approach to not getting bodied is sensible in this train wreck of a situation. Marine accepts Helga's offer because even conquerors need someone who knows first aid. It's hard to rule an empire if everyone keeps bleeding out from paper cuts. With Castle Unicorn secured, Marine hands the keys over to Milza like she's giving him the family car. She then tells him to go conquer Altiek next, because apparently they're speedrunning continental domination. Milza's still playing cleanup crew, hunting down the last of Villar's fanboys who apparently didn't get the memo that their boss is gone. The Dartania prince is out here complaining that Villar's still causing him headaches from beyond the grave. That evening, the surviving Altiek lords gather at David's place for what's basically a medieval group therapy session disguised as diplomatic negotiations. After probably way too much wine and arguing, they finally sign the Altiek Treaty, which is their fancy way of saying, "Let's not die alone." Queen Adokia pops the million-dollar question of who's going to be the boss of this disaster. Someone suggests Selge should take charge since his brother Villar just got deleted. Selge nopes out faster than someone avoiding their college debt, saying he's too busy trying to get his own stuff back to babysit everyone else's problems. Instead, he nominates David, thinking about how it'd rather be him than himself. David also pulls the thanks but no thanks card and throws Theo's name into the ring like he's playing hot potato with responsibility. The other lords look at this suggestion about as enthusiastically as someone being offered expired milk. They clearly think David's more qualified, which is painfully true since Theo's resume mostly consists of him lucking out and having a really good mage. Theo, realizing nobody's buying what he's selling, makes a bold promise to pull off something epic in the next battle to prove he's not completely useless. The lords agree to let David babysit until Theo can prove he's not going to get everyone absolutely obliterated. The next day, Marine sends Milza new orders to go conquer Regalia because her to-do list includes take over literally everything that exists. She wants to secure Boltava so that she can add it to her growing collection of places that used to belong to other people. Milza hears about the Altiek Treaty and basically shrugs it off like it's a mild inconvenience. His confidence levels are somewhere between feeling invincible and debating what could possibly go wrong, which was an ominous sign that he's about to get humbled. Sure enough, Milza runs into Selge's forces and gets into a scrap that's about as decisive as a coin flip. Then David shows up like the world's most fashionably late backup, turning this into a proper throwdown between two guys who actually know what they're doing. After beating the living hell out of each other with what passes for caveman professionalism, both sides call it a draw. Milza and David basically give each other the warrior equivalent of "good game, bro" before Milza's forces tactical retreat, which is military speak for running and leaving before things gets worse. Meanwhile, Marine decides to roll up to Theo's castle with Aubust and enough soldiers to conquer a small country. She's heard about this kid who's been making waves and wants to size up the competition personally, because there was nothing friendlier than bringing an army to someone's front door.
Women.
Theo agrees to meet with her and brings Saluka as his +1. The meeting starts with Saluka having an emotional father-daughter reunion with Aubust, which is sweet until they remember they're technically on opposite sides of a war. Theo and Marine sit down for a political debate. Marine drops some ominous foreshadowing about how creating the Grancrest will make those who roam in darkness come out to play. She's basically saying that if someone unites the continent, the final boss might spawn, which is either deep wisdom or really good trash talk. Theo responds by essentially saying that he is going to finish what she started, positioning himself as Marine's ideological heir while also being her enemy. The summit ends with both sides agreeing they'll probably destroy each other the next time they meet, but in a respectful way. As Theo and Saluka walk back to their castle, they chat about Marine's obvious feelings for Alexis and whether those two idiots might get back together. Saluka's skeptical, but Theo decides to demonstrate his confidence by kissing her right there in front of everyone because subtlety is not in his vocabulary. Theo's soldiers see this display and start cheering like they just witnessed the best halftime show ever. The whole thing was apparently designed to remind Marine what she's missing by choosing conquest over love, which is either really sweet or manipulative depending on how one was to look at it. Marine overhears the celebration and looks upset rather than inspired, proving that some people's emotional baggage is too heavy for even the power of public displays of affection to lift. Marine gets word that Clute successfully jumped some Waldland forces up north and sent them packing. This is apparently good news for Team Stop Marine from taking over everything, giving them a chance to actually fight back instead of just getting steamrolled. Saluka suggests that Theo should march back to Sistina and beat up the Rossini family to prove he's leadership material, as if it was a medieval job interview where the qualification test is whether he can successfully invade somewhere. The plan is solid but goes win a fight, impress the treaty lords, become their leader. Theo's on board with this plan and discusses it with David and his mage Morno. Morno thinks this is a terrible idea and voices every concern known to military strategists, but David's a good hype man for him because he believes in learning through trial by fire. That is it for today's video. If you watched till the end, comment down below Yana the Goth Mommy. If you want more anime recaps like this one, don't forget to check out this video right here.